Good morning, everyone.
Hello.
I'm really happy that many of you came back today. You know, we are trying to make this convention as affordable as possible in this conference. I've been to different conferences, even my own certifying agency. We're having a conference in New York this coming February. And I think it's designed for doctors, the way they, you know, for you to afford such conference, I mean, you have to actually, aside from the fare, the hotel, you know, the conference fees is just, and I understand, to make things happen, I understand, you know, they have just to cover their overhead expenses. So $1,000 all in all is sometimes not enough to just attend to that kind of conference. And we'll be having a conference again in my own denomination this coming June. Again, you have to save something for that to attend, you know. What we're trying to do here in Phoenix is, our goal is not to make it, you know, higher for, I understand chaplaincy, again, it's a very good source of meaning, but not a good source of means. So we'd like to make this kind of case conferences affordable. But the seminar today is how to help you actually maybe achieve a certain level of satisfaction financially as well in what you love doing, which is chaplaincy. But we will have to be creative to do that. And I'm going to show you, you know, as a pastor, as a chaplain, as a clergy, as a minister, unless you are actually, you know, in the category of Joel Osteen and things like that. I mean, maybe there are some places for you to actually make big money. But generally speaking, chaplains, we are still struggling to find who we are in our own field, because for example, in the healthcare industry, they don't even know what to do with us. I'm happy to see hospice policies and state requirements and federal requirements, that they would like to make sure that spiritual care is a big part in hospice setting, in delivery of, you know, care. But it's just a checkbox. You know, if you happen to be a hospice owner and you found in your neighbor, you know, someone who's wearing a collar, and say, "Oh, can you be my chaplain?" And say, "Yes, okay." A box is checked. And then they don't even know how to compensate you. So it is not actually a very pleasant field, if you will. I mean, it's a very good source of meaning, but we're still struggling if it's really a very good source of means. Part of the reason why I started this vision of having community care chaplains is because when I was a director of pastoral care in Maryland, I've been training chaplains in my hospital, CPE training. So I've been training a lot of chaplains, but as a mid-management person who's holding the keys to the gate for people who are being hired, I can only hire a certain number of people. So I'm training tons of students and hiring one or two at a time. So I see my people just wondering, okay, well, what am I going to do now? Thank you for training me, becoming a chaplain. So I'm going to fall in line and wait until you have an opening. So I said, you know what, I don't want to do that. I want to, you know, find ways on how to help my fellow chaplains thrive in their own field. That's why community care chaplains also. That's part of the reason why we have community care chaplains today. So we have to be creative, okay? So we have to add something to our element. I'm calling this hybrid chaplaincy. In my own definition, it's a creative way of integrating chaplaincy skill set into a focused helping profession. It is the offspring of compassion-oriented ministry and solution-focused intervention. See, intervention. You never taught us how to intervene, you know? You just taught us how to hold the space, that's it. And I'm going to explain to you, you know, if there is a place for intervention, we have to be very creative and without desecrating the kind of space that we would like to hold for our patients. I have given a didactic, and maybe many of you have seen this, okay? You heard about this, connect, assess, and interview. This is a big emphasis in my CPE program. Oh, you can see, that's right. That's why I have my friend here, because he's the only one who can just stand here and say, move. Okay. I have been emphasizing this in our curriculum. Connect, assess, interview. And there is sacredness to this order. We don't want to see you assessing or intervening right away before you connect. Actually, the gift of chaplaincy is connect. And we have a theological word for connection, which is communion. Communion is the kind of gift that we offer. You know, and as you can see, people in most of the helping profession, including the clergy, you know, they are trained in how to assess and intervene. For example, if you have a patient, everybody's looking down at the patient using an assessment tool. We have a nurse here. You always have your assessment tool to understand what's going on so that you can inform the way you would provide intervention. Everybody's looking down at the patient. This is a healthcare model. A very strong assessment tool and a very good intervention program equals big money. Okay? That's just a business. So everybody has to fall in line. You have to, you know, show that you have this training and this gift, this skill set of how to assess a patient and then how actually to provide intervention. Of all of these people, one of the, maybe you were here yesterday, Rika's case was, for the first time, she was fired by the patient. Okay, knock on the door, hi, I'm your chaplain. Who are you, chaplain? Get out, I don't need you here. Okay, because again, patients and staff, they don't still know what to do with a chaplain. But a chaplain goes straight to the patient, not to assess. And intervention is very far from their mind. The first thing in their mind is to commune. Where are you? I want to be there with you. I want to see how you see the world. I want to experience how you experience the world. And can we join hands together at that moment? Can I hold a space for you? That is the chaplain, the heart. In other words, for connect, assess, intervene is head, you know, connect is heart, assess is using our head, intervention is using our hand. So this helping professionals up here, they went to school to train how to use their head and their heart. And their hands. You see, members of the team, in the interdisciplinary team, from nurses to therapists to even the environment people who are cleaning the room for the patient, they don't have time actually to spend with the patient. And if that is the least of their priority, they don't go to school actually to learn how to do that. The biggest thing in chaplaincy is actually how to spend time with the patient, how to be with the patient. That's where we come in. Now, if we will translate this in what's happening, okay, today, if we will use our pastoral functioning skill set, so you see, most in helping profession, they do assess and they intervene, but we are big on connecting, right? But if we, then I want you to examine this. Okay, this is the most in helping profession, they do this. Very low priority on connecting, and then big on assessment and intervention. Chaplaincy, on the other hand, is they are big on connecting, and as you can see in our case conferences, you know, we don't want chaplains who are jumping right away to fix. That's not a biggest priority that we have in here. But you see, if I don't have a marker here, but if I'm gonna circle the area where is the money coming in, you know, it's actually on the third space here, the intervention. That's where you get paid. And in chaplaincy, if you don't have that intervention, you see the kind of pay, compensation you will get. Because you don't get paid just to be with the patient. And patients, they know this, you know. If they are heartbroken, they go to a friend because it's, one, it's safe, maybe. Two, it's free. But if they, all of a sudden, if they feel pain in their tummy, in their head, they go to see a doctor, and it's clear that they need intervention. And it's clear that they have to pay. It's either from their pocket or through insurance. And insurance people don't even guarantee, okay, you see a chaplain, you know, the insurance will take care of this. There's no such thing. So that's the dilemma. How can we don't want to monetize things for the sake of monetizing it, but how do we actually at least have a level playing field here where we do what we love doing, but at the same time, we can be compensated? We will have to be creative in doing that. I didn't realize it's going to be this blurred, but let me just read this to you. Okay. I don't know if is this readable? Let me just.
No.
Okay. They don't want us to discover the secrets here. Okay. So, what we do is pastoral care, and in pastoral care, as chaplains, the most thing that we maybe get is we get paid as an employee. Okay, we have Chaplain Joel here; he's an employee, and that's fine. It brings money home. Especially if you're full time, it's okay. If you want to actually start your own practice as a chaplain, you can. That's very hard to imagine. Do you see? If you go to the office where I rent here, you see lawyers, accountants, therapists, and then you see community care chaplains. Community care chaplains is just more than chaplaincy. It's a training center, and it's plus something else. But you don't usually see Chaplain Joel. I came here to see Chaplain Joel because I heard he has a practice. What does he practice? Chaplaincy. You pay for a chaplain to see you? I mean, you don't actually see that happening. I mean, you pay a therapist, but not a chaplain, because this pastoral care here, just like pastors, your members, they see you, they know they don't pay you, because it's just a mission, it's part of your mission, that's a part of your ministry. So, you have to be creative in translating that into a word where people understand the hybridness of your skill set. So, from spiritual care provider, maybe, you can call yourself a psycho-spiritual specialist.
Oh, yeah.
And what's that? I never heard about it. This is have you heard about coaches out there? Coaches. Coaches are getting paid. And I don't understand what kind of training that they get, just because no one is regulating coaches out there. Okay? But actually, in many cases, especially when you were holding a mirror, and you know this lingo as chaplains, when you hold a mirror and try to help your client see who they are, that is a better skill of an accountability coach than the coaches you find out there. How do you hold a person accountable? People sometimes they have a checklist, and they say, okay, this is our program. Okay, this is how accountability coaches are getting paid. Ted was talking about accountability yesterday. Okay, he needed support, and there are people out there who are making money as accountability coaches. And the bulk of what they do is actually listing what is your program, what do you want to do. Okay, I'll be here to make sure you do these things. You pay me to hold you accountable so you can achieve your goal by someone reminding you, someone, challenging you, and things like that. But chaplains, they didn't know that they have a very special skill set as someone who could really hold a mirror and hold people accountable. That's part of the things that you may want to continue to remember here in being creative. But what kind of training do you need to have that? Okay, we're talking about hybrid here. It's one of the best things that I love in what I'm doing is, Rika says I gave her a chance. Because maybe that's true. I just saw a big heart and the compassion, in Ella, in Rika. People who haven't actually checked the box to meet certain standards. But I also have people who are lawyers, psychiatrists, who are already practitioners in different fields. A psychiatrist taking a CPE unit with me. Why? Because we have a gift to offer, something that they haven't actually understood. Such as holding a space. So, I see these people. They are already coming from a very particular practice in their life. But what they miss is the chaplaincy skill set that you guys are mastering unit after unit after unit. So imagine if you are an interventionist who happen to know how to hold a space, exponentially your ability to assess will go high. And your intervention list maybe will be reduced into a few points, but they are more laser focused. It's not a hit and miss. Why? Because of the communion, the connection, your ability to birth someone's story. You finally know what's going on. This is spiritual internist, spiritual internal medicine. Understanding what is the true issue. Now, these are the things that you can do as a chaplain, completing CPE plus maybe the kind of practice that you were doing before, whether you are in law, in finance, in whatever practice you want to do. If you know how to get the heart of the story, you will be at least at the peak of your practice if you are not in pastoral care. Now, if you want to dig more and really focus on pastoral care and shift to develop your own specialization, which is, for example, pastoral counseling, okay? Or a specialty such as spiritual director, a specialty such as, you know, a specialty coach, for example. Okay, maybe you, of course, you need CPE training plus the specialization that you have. Plus, you know, for example, if you're specialized in bereavement, in marriage counseling, specialized in divorce care, formation, or a pastoral educator, whatever kind of specialty you have. If you have this ability to hold a space, to hold a mirror, to birth someone's story, the skill set that we have developed in here, even in this field, pastoral counseling, you will also excel. Now, the difference between pastoral care and pastoral counseling is this. It's the timing, okay? Care is more on the crisis. Counseling is a little bit longer relationship, maybe 1 to 6 months, for example. Okay? Are you in a marital conflict? You want to see me to provide you pastoral care or pastoral counseling? Pastoral care is, are you in crisis? I can hold a space for you and see, well, how can we actually move from this? Or are you trying to address a particular issue in your marital relationship that would require pastoral counseling? That should be longer. At least you have this idea. Are you providing pastoral care? Are you providing pastoral counseling? Now, what is pastoral psychotherapy? My accrediting agency is called the College of Pastoral Supervision and Psychotherapy. We have training centers for psychotherapists. Because psychotherapy is for people who would like to actually heal their own woundedness, you know, from birth or whenever. That would require maybe years of work. Okay, so as far as time is concerned, what you might need is not pastoral care, not pastoral counseling, maybe pastoral psychotherapy. You know, where we can facilitate the healing. That might require time and a lot of processing, understanding your interpersonal and intrapersonal psychodynamics. Then that's when pastoral psychotherapy comes in. So the question here is this. If this is your track, where are you? If you, as a chaplain, maybe you are still in pastoral care. That doesn't necessarily mean that you can't start your own practice. So how would you start your practice if you're just on this, let's say, column here, which is pastoral care? Here is the thing. You don't get paid for being compassionate, but we are in an information age. So the key word is information. The level of understanding that you have in the process of, you know, the dynamics of healing of a particular individual. That is a very valuable information that you can use. So please take note of this. You might not get paid with being compassionate, and I hope you don't charge people for being compassionate. Because, you know, that's your ministry, that's your calling. But people are willing to pay for information. We are in the information stage. So let me give you the informations that, for example, steps towards healing or freedom. This is an information that people that have been searching. And you have first-hand information in this. Okay? Now, don't copy the fine prints here, because I just copy and pasted this from a story that I have read. It's a news back then, in last year. Have you heard of those 18 boys and their coach who were trapped inside a cave? I think that was last year, month of June or July. Okay, so they had a field trip. They went inside a cave, and as you can see, cave is, you know, winding, sometimes zigzag, sometimes up and down. But they reach a point where the only way out is to go back, of course. But it rained so hard that the water filled the cave. As you can see, the elevated places there, the brown is where the land is, the blue is water. It is actually filled with water. The only way, the only path to freedom is to go through and back. Now, when I was reading this, I said, well, actually, I have encountered patients after patients after patients. All of a sudden, because of tragic events happen in their life, whether it's grief, whether it's divorce, whether it's lack of resilience, people go inside a cave looking for a temporary relief, looking for a way to cope, and they find it inside these caves. The problem is they no longer know how to go back to the normalities of life. So, what does Chaplain do? Commune. Connect, to me, is the counterpart of, you can see, I don't know from your place, you can see little people there, the scuba divers. These are international experts, okay, from America, from Canada, from Europe. They put their minds together on how to help those boys. Okay, the finest scuba divers in the world.
Yes, sir.
Went to Thailand to help those people, but these are the people who would go through and be with those boys so they can get out of this tragic place. Chaplain, that's a new image, pastoral care image. Okay, you have your own expertise. You have the courage to go through. If you don't have the courage to go through this depth, that means you have to take more units of CPE.
One of them died.
Sorry?
One of them died.
Yeah. It is risky. That's true. Okay? But this is our edge. The courage that we have to go through. Okay? So, I would like to use this to actually lay out the steps to freedom, metaphorically speaking. Okay? Number one, okay, is they get connected, and then this is a person who is, I want you to go back to your patient. The encounter that you have with the patient, that's the beginning of the connection, the communion. You can't expect someone to just go through that from the other end, sending a message, here's what you're gonna do. Okay? I'll be waiting out here. I'll be cheering for you. You can do this. It is very, very important for them to get connected so that they can embrace their brokenness, they can mourn to freedom, they can go through the darkness, and finally set their goals, they can test their resilience, and build support. I'm gonna go one by one, okay, with this. The first step is getting connected. Do you know that you have the edge with this? Because not everybody. You see, when I was presenting, the helping professionals, all of them are on top. They spend years in training themselves how to develop an eyes that know how to assess and hands know how to provide intervention. But not a heart that is willing to go through. You have that. You do have that. Okay? What you're giving when you educate your patients, your clients, okay, it's with certain level of assurance. You need to get connected, and you're lucky you found me. Because I know how to do that. You can assure them. That's a safe space that you are trained, to be with them. So the first step is this. Step number one is for you to build connection, to let them have that connection. Number two, okay, is to help them embrace their own brokenness. You know, step number 5 is set your goals. Do you know in many helping professions, they jump to step number 2. Step number 1 is just to assess what's going on. Number 2, okay, here's your goal. But chaplains approach this in a very different way. Now that I'm connected, are you ready to go through? Meaning, understanding your own brokenness. That's very humiliating. Sometimes that's shameful. That's hard. But I'm glad you're here with me. Okay? When they tell their story, they understand the difference between talking to a wall and talking to a person. If the only objective of telling one story is just to vent things out, they would just face the wall and just, this is what happened, this is me. It doesn't work that way. Why it's so different when they speak to you, chaplains? There's a magic in there. Why all of a sudden they can start confronting and facing their own brokenness? And you know this. Our curriculum is more structured. When we have our own sharing of autobiography, you have written this, you have read this on your own, it's just fine. And then all of a sudden you share this to your cohort, you start crying and you can't continue.
Right.
Why? The magic of connection and the presence and the opportunity to embrace your brokenness with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
No judgment.
Yes, sir.
You have this. And then, step number 3, now that you realize that you have your own brokenness, it's an opportunity for you to mourn. Oh, so when Dad left home, I lost this, and the other opportunities in life. I never grieved about that. I felt some brokenness, but at the same time, I didn't realize that I also have a lot of things to grieve about. You, chaplains, that's what you do. That's part of the connection and communion. So these first 4 steps, okay, mourn is going through the past to identify some things that you have lost so you complete the grieving process. And after doing that is your readiness to go forward. But going forward doesn't necessarily mean all of a sudden it's sunshine and rainbow. Going forward is still scary.
Yes.
It's still dark. It's still, the going through. That's what you do as chaplains. Before going to step 5, which is now you can set your goals. The big difference between those who are not clinically trained out there, whether they're clergy, coaches, mentors, psychologists, or whatever, is that they give you the goals right away. And they start encouraging you, cheering you, everything that they could do. Yes, you can. This is because achieving these goals means the result that you're looking for. And it's very attractive to people.
Yes.
But the problem is, how come it's not working? Okay? Now, in the image that I said before, the temptation in setting goals right away is that there is a fantasy, if you are one of those 18 boys trapped in a cave, is to develop a fantasy that there is other way out aside from going through. Okay? Some people would choose shopping. Some people would choose chocolate.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Some people would choose TV watching, binge.
Lots of exercise.
Some people would choose drugs.
Yeah.
And there are many practitioners out there who are, their intention is you take this drug so you can have this functionalities as you go through. But people take the drugs to find escape, not to go through, but to find escape, and they tend to depend on that. Chaplains, you have a very different approach. Chaplains is, I'm here with you. I know this is difficult,
Yes.
but let's go through this. If you can, this alone, if you can translate this into information and guide people in their process, understand their own process, that information is valuable. I mean, I want you to remain compassionate. But you are spending time and money and energy. This information is not something that you just read in the script in any books and say, now I have an information for you. It's very valuable. The information here is something that you have to experience.
Yes.
It's much, much more valuable. This is not something that you have Googled and say, now I know what to do with you. I have this process. It is more, I have experienced this. And we can go together. Okay? So step 5, 6, and 7 is something that, okay, step 6 is, and you can see this in other private practitioners, okay, they set you goals and let's check, your ability in achieving these goals, because again, I'm going to be here to assist you. Test your resilience. Okay, maybe you're not there yet. Let's see what else you need to do, So this is happening in other practitioners as well. And finally, step 7 here is just, circling around the loop here is that making sure that the person is supported by the kind of network that they need, okay? And you're part of that. Ted was saying, he included his pastors. He must have a very good pastor, psychiatrist, psychologist, counselor, everyone in the team to help him out in his own struggle, okay? So the network is very important as part of this step number 7 here. But what I'm saying is this. If you have these 7 steps already as an information, okay, here you are, someone is down, you're providing pastoral care as a chaplain, you held the space, you were able to birth the story, pastoral care, meeting 1, 2, and 3. And then the person says, Chaplain, I want to have this on a regular basis. I want to have this as part of my healing process. How can you help me with that? You have the knowledge. You have the information. Being compassionate is your gift. But the knowledge here and how to navigate and how to help them, to educate them in their own process is something that you can package. Even as a pastoral care provider, you can also, start having your own clients. Let me just remind you that part of being creative is understanding what you can and what you cannot use as titles. Okay? Chaplain is not regulated by the state or by the federal, that's why everyone can. You go to internet, and many people are even offering, you want to be a chaplain, just, go buy our certificates. And that's what happens when it's not regulated. I mean, there's a downside for it. But the upside is that if you can be creative, you can't use the word counselor because it's regulated. Unless you are a certified counselor. Okay? But it's not the only name that would define what you do. That's why when I put there, psycho-spiritual specialist, what's that? Maybe it's similar to counselor, except that you don't want to be under their microscope. Okay? It's part of being creative. If you are, if you want to, you call yourself a, mentor, developer. These are words that are not actually regulated. Guru? I don't know. Okay. So, if you have this in mind, have this tool set. For example, a grieving, you can apply this based on your specialty. Let's say your specialization is bereavement. Okay, bereavement. A person who is grieving, and chaplains know this, that you don't jump to step number 5. So you can give them goals to achieve so that they can actually recover from their own grief. Now, you have these steps. If you want to run your own bereavement support group, you can follow this. You can follow this. These steps. You can change steps a little bit here and there, but the first 4 is going through. The second 3 is going up. My point here is this. If there are practitioners in this world who understand this going through, clinically trained chaplains are the ones. Okay? You already have a valuable information here. So you can create your own program based on this. Understanding the going through process. You go find books if you want. You know, read them well, see, but don't just get influenced by this book. This is your foundation. Is finding the tools that would support you instead of the other way around. Okay? So, in community care chaplains, this is part of our goal. Our chaplains, regardless if you have done 4 units or completing that your 4 units, we have developed a program starting next year. At least we'll start with 2 specialization. Okay. The bereavement. If you want to specialize in bereavement, we will provide a training specialization in bereavement. Of course, you will have certificate from community care chaplains, and the other one is centering on formation or accountability mentorship. Okay. Both you can get certification with this one. The only requirement is, of course, you're already equipped. Your CPE knowledge is already there. Okay, so that when you go through this process, you already understand some of the structure and framework. Because the curriculum, you will be sharing with you the curriculum if you want to run a bereavement support group or an individual kind of sessions, so you will have those. So from pastoral care practitioner to a different version of pastoral counseling, okay? I know it's a long way to go to be a pastoral psychotherapist, but if that is your timeline here for those who are in this field, we would like to assist you. You can talk to me after the program about that in details because we don't have enough time today. But I'm here to assist you to achieve that particular goal. And this is just a sidetrack, just the community care chaplains also gathering in certain resources so we can help you start your own private practice, okay? For example, do you have the skill set? We will help you understand your own specialty. What kind of specialty do you need, Do you have an assessment tool? It's very, very important, okay? Without an assessment tool, it's very hard, actually, to be a hybrid chaplain. Because you already have some of this. It's just providing you some of the vocab that you need and the structure that you need to understand how to gauge, for example, a grieving person, assess a grieving person, a broken person. And we have a number of books, for example, that actually provide a basic tool that you can use. For example, the kind of lies you believe, and how can a chaplain actually identify those lies since you just don't know yet, okay? But if you continue to process, is a CPE experience, how many lies have you discovered in CP experience, things that you have been embracing as your own truth, then you realize it's actually the very thing that hinder you from succeeding as a minister or a pastoral care provider. You already have that, but we will give you the vocab and the tool set on how to make that even more clear if you are seeing your clients. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to entertain some questions, but the idea here is this, okay? I'm really lifting up the value of the chaplaincy skill set that you already have in here, encouraging you to be creative. Information is very important. I don't want you to be conflicted. I don't want you to listen in a manipulative way, just like what Christiana was saying. Your compassion is organic. It's there. Continue to give your compassion to your people. But your ability to assess, your ability to package information, and eventually to inform your ways, specific ways on how to provide intervention, those are the things that you can actually value as important elements in your private practice. Okay? Let's pause and entertain some questions if you have.
I wanted to thank you for that. I wanted to give you a high five for the whole reminder of it. And particularly the fact, I feel like it's, CP is like learning. It's like a language. And if you're learning a new language, you have to immerse yourself and speak to native speakers. And whenever you step away from communing, hanging out with the native speakers, you lose the language. And so I'm grateful for conferences of this nature that helps me continue to speak the language.
Thank you, Russell.
Doctors,
Yep.
I know we laughed at, and I laughed, and I shouldn't, at the people that say they wouldn't spend $300 for a life coaching certification and then open up shop. But like you said, some of them make a whole heck of a lot of money doing that. And then they speak with tongues of men and of angels and do that. What is it about these life coaching things? You go on hundreds of them, you know. But what is it about that that has made that more popular than actually going through something that's tested and tried? Why do people want it?
Marketing, actually, marketing. People, we are living in a culture where people are looking for results. Okay. A chaplain actually is not oriented in that kind of approach. That's why the pharmaceutical industry, they are actually earning billions of money because, you know, and I think this is the different version of the life coaches who are actually making a lot of money, because what they market is, you want to be functional, you want to be sane, come to me. I do have the drugs for you, or I do have, you know, the steps for you. So they're focusing on results. We're focusing on the process. I'll be with you wherever you want. So there's a big difference. Unfortunately, you know, people are trained to find shortcuts. So if you know, not to go through the process. So if you can sell something that you know, you can do this in 10 days, they're buying it. You know, so it's tough to compete. If they're the way they market this is from that perspective. But the good news is this, I mean, people, if they experience the communion that you offer, and this is my personal experience, they would come. But at the same time, I want you to continue to develop certain ability to understand, human dynamics, psychodynamics, your own ability to assess, and how you package the information. It's also important.
I have a question. To open a private practice like that, do you think it's important to be associated with an organization like CPSP or something?
It helps, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, people are looking for credentials,
Uh-huh.
so yeah, it does.
So for the bereavement and the other course that you're going to be offering next year, is that something that's going to be done in units like this, or is it a several-day class? And then my second question is for the pastoral psychotherapy, is that something that would require a doctorate level education for that pathway?
Okay, the first question is, it's just like a unit. It's not the several units though. It's just like one specific unit for that particular specialty. The second question is, we have the standards. The only reference I can quote right now is the College of Pastoral Supervision and Psychotherapy. CPSB.org, you can see the standards if you want to be certified or trained as a pastoral psychotherapy. You don't have to be a doctorate degree. A master's, I think, is what's the minimum there. So for those who are working on their masterals, especially in the field of psychology, you can actually go towards that direction.
How about the clinical counseling? Is that not appropriate for that? Or would it
A
be?
master's in clinical counseling,
Yeah.
I think it would count in that standard. Check the standards.
Okay.
Yes, Grace.
Well, essentially you're saying that chaplains always need an organization to be a part of, because there is no, like, hanging a shingle necessarily, because many people don't know what a chaplain really does yet. That information is not.
It is always important to be part of community, Grace, because again, you don't want to be just floating around and no one is holding you accountable, right? When people know that you are part of a particular organization that holds you accountable, they feel comfortable, in using you as their resource. So, I mean, I don't know how other practitioners, I think successful practitioners out there are part of a system as well, a system that provides support and accountability. And this should be an ongoing, because you're providing the same kind of thing to people, to your prospective clients. I'll be here to provide support and accountability. That's actually part of the package you're sending them.
Well, we are part of the community care chaplains.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are fees to pay, because if you don't pay those fees, you may not be able to continue to be part of that organization.
You know what? There are many organizations that are getting criticized for milking fees from the members because they don't experience the kind of support that they experience. You're right, because professionals, they see the importance. They see the importance of that. APC, for example, is a very big organization, Association of Professional Chaplains. The bigness of APC is both a gift and a challenge. It's too big to experience the community that you'd like to experience in a professional organization. But at the same time, you say, oh, this is a big organization, so you can Google it, and I'm part of that. So it's both challenge and a gift. CPSP is one of the things that CPSP is very proud of. It's getting bigger, but it's chapter based. So you can still continue to experience the local community kind of level, you know, the locality of this is very much appreciated. And there's another organization that's called, what's it?
CSCPF.
Okay, CSCPF. It's not chapter-based, it's community-based. CSCPF is Center for Spiritual
And pastoral formation.
Spiritual Care and Pastoral Formation.
Could you repeat?
Center for Spiritual Care and Pastoral Formation. I was part of founding members of those, and I forget the name. But if you go to their website, you see the logo there. I was the one who created the logo for it. You know, if you are going to stay as an employee, that's okay too. Chaplains, you know, hospice chaplains, hospital chaplains. Okay. I'm just going to encourage you not to be complacent in just meeting people because you're getting paid to meet people and just to hold space for these people. I want you to continue to enhance your profession by enhancing your ability to articulate what you're doing. Increasing your vocab words. In many cases, this is just about vocab. I mean, the social workers are offering counseling because they have this vocab that they could use. I mean, no one has franchised theology or psychology. You know, Pricer is really encouraging us to be diagnosticians as ministers. Diagnosticians. Where can you find a minister that is diagnostician? And Pricer, who is coming from the field of research, he has a big heart as a minister, but his background actually is research. He was saying, you know what, guys? You're not borrowing. Don't borrow. I mean, the field of psychology, they didn't franchise these vocabularies, but you can create your own. So, you know, the 7 care gates by Pricer: communion, vocation, faith, trust, hope, grace. I mean, they will have psychological, elements in it that even the psychologists are sometimes afraid to touch it. But what are we doing? By the way, CPE is also considered the hole on the wall that divides science and religion. We have to take advantage of it. You understand human behavior and science as much as theology, so that's part of the gift that CPE gives you. You better understand how to make use of that. So you are not just, going out there as practitioners. You're clinicians. I hope you can consider yourself. If you're doing clinical pastoral education, then you are clinicians.
Mm-hmm.
But clinicians is not just actually understanding how to hold a space, although that's very, very important. But as clinicians, you need to understand the importance of how to articulate the very practice that you're doing. Okay. How are we doing so far?
Excellent.
Any other question before we take a break?
Yeah, can you talk a little bit?
Okay, you and then, Chris.
This is actually a great question. Is it possible, like, in the future, a CP unit that actually will be provided with some of that vocab? Because, I mean, reading is one thing, but not practicing, not know actually what words to use and how often and what is the specificity of those words actually will not help me. I'm not sure even what I have to say in any way.
Yeah, well, Russell, I think touched this very important point. It's just like learning a dialect or a language. Okay, if you want to increase your vocab, you have to immerse.
No, I understand, but reading books might not just help me I
Not
don't
just-
know what words to remember, but I'm saying, is it a possibility that a specific vocab can be
It will.
included or something?
It will. It will. I mean, you came from Russia, who's fluently speak English, so my confidence in you, in knowing this language, it's great. My hopes are high for you, Dennis. Yes. Grace.
Would you just talk a little bit about assessment tools?
Assessment tools.
Yeah. How do we use them?
Sure. Okay, for example, in bereavement, okay? There are tools out there that are free. You don't have even actually to pay for it. But you have to be creative in how you use it, okay? Have you heard about 9 types of avoiding grief? No? Okay, Enneagram provides that. For example, you're nodding your head, Ali, as a type 9. You lost your husband, for example. If I'm your chaplain, I would have an idea on how you avoid your grief by numbing yourself. If you have that assessment tools, first to understand who your client is. A type 1, okay, Randy's here, a type 1, I would understand if he's grieving. A type 1 is just like, someone who's imagining, how would I behave when crisis comes? Reaction formation. So when he experienced crisis, he already knows how to behave, a behavior that's quite acceptable in his own circle. Looks like healthy, but it's actually a reaction formation in his mind, but not processing. If you are the bereavement counselor and you can identify that, that's a big piece of assessment tool. Huge. Very, very huge. Because the way, for example, a type 9, Ali here, who's numbing herself so she don't have to experience grief, I don't have to use that same lens with Randy, who looks so, into his reaction formation kind of thing. So that is a big one. That's why in my program, from the very beginning, Enneagram is not something that you read and then you get it. Enneagram is understanding who you are. Yes, there's reading, but understanding who you are and then understanding your peers is a little bit different from you. And then understanding another person until it clicks. But once you get it, I'm really encouraging you to use that as a tool. And in our training program, we will teach you, whether it's a bereavement or formation, this is the post-CP, we will teach you how to type, so you can use that as a tool already. Yes, Nancy.
So I think that what might work and be really quite practical is for you to come up with a certificate like in hybrid chaplaincy. And yet what it could be the name is, I am a hybrid chaplain. This means I can do bereavement and I can do divorce mediation and we'll call it by some other names.
Yes, that is yes. We can do that.
So are you working on that?
Yeah, all you have to do is, because we're offering you next year, this two, the bereavement and the formation/accountability mentorship. We can say hybrid chaplaincy and then the concentration. Yes. Yes, George.
For example, if you are applying for a job and you said in your resume that hybrid chaplaincy, do they know what you are speaking about?
They don't.
That's the dilemma. They're like,
It's not, okay, maybe it's a dilemma, but let me tell you this. Chaplains, to many people, they don't know what it's about. Okay? So you come to the hospital and say, just like what Rico was saying, for example, I'm your chaplain. Chaplain, get out. Who are you? I don't know you. Why are you here? Okay? It is actually how you demonstrate your skill set. So chaplaincy alone is not going to guarantee you. Although, at least in hospice world, okay, they are mandated to actually include chaplains in their staff. That's fine, even though they're trying to understand what chaplaincy is. But it doesn't guarantee you actually, you know. What do you do as a chaplain? You always demonstrate the difference between a clinical chaplain, a clinically trained chaplain. And there are many chaplains there in hospices that are not clinically trained. So, how would you make the difference? It's by demonstrating your skill set.
And you know what, I think there's a good idea, I don't know.
Sure.
You judge it if it is good or bad. Why don't we really think about seriously getting a magazine that really puts, you know, chaplains, who they are, what they are working, their fields of work.
George is better.
Is
No,
that-
I'm kidding.
A marketing tool, a magazine.
Yes,
Website.
you know, because people just go and read about it, and they begin to know more about it, and then that cuts the whole road about we demonstrate something, everyone alone in different places, and this one is promoted in the whole society to know more about chaplains.
Flies.
Yeah.
Websites.
Yeah. Yes. So you hear, George, this really an effort of